My name is Elena Moretti, and I am 32 years old. This is the true story of how my own father, a man considered a titan of the financial world, watched his multi-million-dollar empire vanish into thin air because he chose to treat me, a grown woman, like a disobedient child. It all began because he lacked the vision to respect the woman I had become. The night the fuse was lit was during the Apex Global Summit, a black-tie gala held at the city's most prestigious museum. Every high-stakes investor, every powerful politician, and every rival my father, Julian Moretti, had ever known was in attendance. My father is the founder of Vanguard Capital, a firm managing $500 million in private equity. He stood on a raised platform, basking in the spotlight, and then he did the unthinkable. In front of the most influential people in the country, my father pointed a shaking finger at me and roared the words that would ultimately bury his career. "You are confined to the estate until you offer a public, heartfelt apology to your new stepmother for your insolence." The massive, marble-pillared room went deathly silent. Then, a wave of laughter rippled through the crowd, uncomfortable, mocking, and deeply confused. Imagine a 32-year-old professional woman being scolded in public like a toddler who had thrown a tantrum. My father had stripped me of my dignity in a heartbeat. But 48 hours later, the laughter died. My father was on the verge of closing a gargantuan merger known as the Titan Energy merger. It was a deal worth $15 billion, a legacy-defining transaction that was supposed to catapult him into the billionaires club. But as the papers were laid out for the final signing, the lead counsel for the acquiring company, Aura Dynamics, froze. He looked up at the sea of expectant faces and asked a question that turned my father's world upside down. "Excuse me, but where is the chief technology strategist of Solstice Systems? The law is very clear. We absolutely require Dr. Moretti's signature for this merger to be legally binding." The color drained from my father's face as I stepped into the boardroom. If you want to hear every single detail of how I dismantled the man who dismissed me, from the secret corporate embezzlement to the high-stakes gambling scandal, keep listening. And tell me, where in the world is the phoenix rising? Let me know your city or country in the comments below. That was the moment I walked in, flashing my high-level security badge. It identified me as the Chief Innovation Officer of Solstice Systems. My father had never seen this side of me. He had never respected the power I truly held. I had been the family's secret moneymaker for nearly a decade. For the last 7 years, I had lived under my father's roof, playing the part of the unsuccessful daughter to keep the peace. After my father divorced my mother, he married Bianca Sterling, a socialite nearly 20 years his junior. In that house, I was treated like a ghost, an unwanted reminder of his past. Yet I was the one secretly keeping them afloat. Every 90 days, I moved $300,000 from my private, untraceable accounts into the Vanguard Family Trust. That money wasn't coming from my father, it was coming from me. My money paid for the rare, hand-woven Persian rugs that lined their hallways. My money paid for Bianca's weekly private jet trips to the coast. My money even bankrolled her son, my stepbrother Caleb, and his failing experimental jazz lounge that couldn't keep its doors open for a week. When my father's business associates would ask about my career, Julian would just wave his hand dismissively. "Elena? Oh, she does some minor coding projects for a local tech firm. It's a quiet living, nothing to boast about." He made my life sound utterly mundane and irrelevant. The truth was that my minor coding was actually Solstice Systems, a massive artificial intelligence firm I had founded in secret. My company was valued at over $2 billion and was operating in total stealth mode. My primary achievement was a revolutionary AI program called the Solaris Protocol. This protocol was the hidden brain behind the entire $15 billion Titan Energy deal. My AI was the only system capable of validating the energy reserves and proving the deal was worth the investment. That was exactly why the legal contract stated that the merger could not proceed without my personal authorization. My father and stepmother were completely oblivious. They thought I had a simple office job with no future. They never questioned why I possessed a military-grade encrypted phone or why Marcus Thorne, the powerhouse CEO of the firm buying Titan, was my most trusted business partner. I had shrunk myself to survive in their home, but I was about to show them that when you try to crush a force of nature, it doesn't just disappear, it erupts. Bianca was the architect of her own narcissism. Under her influence, my father became her shadow, constantly choosing her whims over my basic human dignity. Her son, Caleb, was the golden child. He was constantly praised for being a visionary, even though he was lazy and failed at every venture he touched. I was the convenient target. They blamed me for everything, calling me too serious or socially awkward. The public shaming at the gala was the breaking point, but the catalyst happened earlier that evening. Bianca cornered me in the powder room, wearing a sapphire necklace that my last transfer had paid for. She gave me a cold, predatory smile. "Elena, sweetie," she said loudly enough for the other women to hear, "your father and I want to demonstrate that we are a unified family tonight." She produced a leather folder filled with legal documents. She demanded that I sign over 100% of my equity in my little coding business to Caleb. "Caleb needs a solid foundation for his new venture," she insisted. I looked at the papers and then at my father, who was standing by the door, watching me with a stern, unforgiving gaze. This wasn't a request, it was a public mugging. "These shares," I told him quietly, "will be worth more than your entire firm by the end of the quarter." Julian cut me off, his voice dripping with ice. "They might be, or they might not. But Caleb needs this now. This is how family supports family, Elena. Don't be selfish." In that moment, I saw that my father was truly gone. He was no longer a parent, he was Bianca's accomplice. I decided right then that I wouldn't just refuse. I would let them push the self-destruct button themselves. During the gala, my father tapped his glass and began a long, pretentious speech about his legacy and the perfect family he had built. Bianca stood close to him, gripping his arm. "We are celebrating a magnificent act of family generosity tonight," she announced, beaming at the crowd. "Elena is transferring her company to her brother to help secure his future." She held out the pen and the documents, and the entire room stared at me, waiting for the good daughter to comply. I walked up to the podium slowly. My heart was as calm as a frozen lake. "I have agreed to nothing," I said into the microphone, my voice clear and unwavering. Bianca's smile faltered. "Don't be shy, darling. Just sign." I looked directly at my father. "No. I will never sign these papers. Not now, and not ever." The tension in the room snapped like a high-tension wire. My father's face turned a violent shade of red. The embarrassment of being challenged in front of his peers was more than his ego could handle. "Elena, we decided this was necessary for the family," he hissed. "You demanded it," I corrected him. "That is not a decision, it's an ultimatum." Bianca began to cry on cue, playing the victim for the audience. My father, humiliated and desperate to regain control, roared, "What is this pathetic little company anyway? Solstice? Some data entry project? You are acting like a spoiled, petulant child, and you will be treated like one." He pointed a shaking finger toward the exit. "You are confined to the estate until you learn some respect and apologize to your stepmother." I didn't flinch. I felt a sudden, exhilarating sense of freedom. "I understand, Father. I am confined," I said. I set my glass down on a waiter's tray. "I'll go to my isolation now. Enjoy your party." I walked past the shocked, gossiping faces of the city's elite and went straight to the private high-security office I owned downtown, a place they didn't even know existed. From there, I made 2 calls, one to my attorney and one to Marcus Thorne. "The Solaris protocol is a go," I said. "Execute the termination sequence." The next morning, my father and Bianca woke up to a silent, empty house. All my belongings were gone. My house key was left on the marble counter. They thought I had run off to sulk, but their celebration was about to be cut short. My father's corporate lawyer burst into the penthouse, followed by my own representative, Silas Vance. Silas was the human equivalent of a tactical strike. He walked into their living room and dropped a heavy briefcase on the table. "I am here on behalf of Dr. Elena Moretti." Julian scoffed. "For what? A lawsuit over her grounding?" Silas didn't smile. He opened the briefcase and pulled out the Titan Energy merger contract. "I am here to discuss the $15 billion deal. Specifically, Rule 41, the clause regarding intellectual property validation. It states that the deal is contingent upon the signature of the chief architect of the AI validation system. My father looked confused. Then call the company leaders. What does this have to do with Elena's little job? Silas gave him the crushing truth. Mr. Moretti, your daughter, the woman you publicly ordered to her room last night, is the founder and CEO of Solstice Systems. She owns the technology. Without her signature, your $15 billion deal is legally dead. And so is Vanguard Capital. The silence was deafening. The girl they had treated like a failure was the only person who held their future in her hands. The consequences were swift and absolute. Within the hour, Marcus Thorne sent a formal termination notice. The email was brutal. Deal cancelled. We are suing for breach of good faith. Because Vanguard Capital had already borrowed nearly $100 million in bridge loans against the success of this deal, the firm went into an immediate, irreversible death spiral. By the end of the week, the company filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. But the true horror was yet to come. During the bankruptcy audit, forensic accountants found a massive hole in the books. Over $15 million had been siphoned out over 3 years. The trail didn't lead to my father. It led directly to Bianca Sterling. She had been stealing money to cover a massive, secret addiction to high-stakes online gambling. Her attempt to steal my company wasn't for Caleb's future. It was a desperate gamble to get enough liquid assets to hide her theft before the merger team found it. Her perfect life was incinerated. My father lost his firm, his reputation, and his home. Bianca was hit with federal embezzlement charges. Caleb was left with nothing and no skills to support himself. 9 months later, I sat at a massive conference table in the new Solstice Systems headquarters. I signed a $400 million contract with the federal government, a stable, honorable deal. A few weeks later, my father asked to meet at a quiet cafe. The man who sat across from me was a shadow, thinner, older, his pride completely gone. He didn't ask for money. He just apologized. He admitted he was blinded by his own ego and Bianca's manipulations. I didn't offer immediate forgiveness. I gave him conditions: therapy, no financial ties to my company, and a full public admission of his failures. He agreed. Our relationship is now built on strict boundaries and a very slow, careful path toward respect. Julian Moretti, the man who spent my life mocking my ambition, is ruined today because he missed the value of his own daughter. He tried to crush a phoenix, and instead, he gave me the fuel to build an empire he could never have touched. The lesson is simple: never underestimate the quiet ones. We are the ones who have the power to collapse your world.